Welcome back. President Trump's first international trip is moving full steam ahead. He met with Pope Francis today, but tomorrow will be one of his biggest tests as he meets with leaders of NATO. Now, as you may recall, candidate Trump, not a big fan of NATO, calling it obsolete. But the president has changed course since then, and last month he said that NATO has changed the way they fight terror, making them no longer obsolete. The president's NATO visit has even more significance given the devastating terrorist attack in Manchester. Plus, our relations with Russia are a little bit shaky right now, and Russia would love nothing more than for the NATO alliance to fall apart. With me now to break it down, it's former UN ambassador and Fox News contributor, Ambassador John Bolton. Welcome back, sir.
Glad to be with you.
So what are your thoughts on NATO and the president's evolution on said body?
Well, I'm glad he's come to this position. I do think NATO's the most effective political military alliance basically in all of human history, and it would be a terrible mistake for the United States to let it go. That said, NATO has a lot of flaws. Its decision-making mechanisms are sclerotic. Often in the field it is proven ineffective as the allies don't necessarily listen to decisions from the top commanders.
Yeah.
And it's certainly the case, as President Trump said, that NATO members are not living up to the commitment they themselves made voluntarily to spend 2% of GNP on defense.
Yeah, but they're looking to the United States as NATO's greatest benefactor for protection, especially in instances like in Manchester, which could happen in any number of countries that are within the alliance. So does what happened in Manchester start a necessary conversation about how the organization deals with terror?
Well, we should have had this conversation long before. I mean, I think the real coordination that's necessary first is more intelligence sharing among the allies. Unfortunately, there are some that it's difficult to share the intelligence with. But I think NATO can have an important role. Certainly it was there in Afghanistan to help defeat Taliban and al-Qaeda. And it could join with us, for example, in the fight against ISIS. I would hope they would agree to that.
I mean, doesn't it seem like it's a little bit late considering how far along several countries are in this fight? And what would it take for NATO to come together and effectively fight ISIS and do something that the United States can't do alone?
Well, I think it would require leadership, and I think that's one of the problems that the Trump administration faces after 8 years of a vacuum, in essence, from Obama. So I don't anticipate, again, knowing NATO as I do, that it will happen overnight, but perhaps this meeting that the president's attending can be a useful start. Yeah,
and, you know, I know we've talked a lot about some questionable alliances that we've got around the globe, particularly Saudi Arabia, and there are a lot of people you know, and some liberty-minded Republicans who have questions and issues with the Saudi arms deal. What do you say to people like Rand Paul, who's put forth legislation condemning that sale without congressional approval?
Well, it's not untypical to have a congressional vote on an arms sale of that size, so I don't object to having the vote. I'm a liberty-loving Republican, and I hope that the Saudis put these weapons to good use, especially in Yemen, killing the terrorists of ISIS, al-Qaeda, and the Houthi rebels associated with Iran. I wish them Godspeed on that.
Yeah, there certainly is a huge conflict between Saudi Arabia and Yemen right now, and it doesn't just focus on ISIS. And I guess one of the issues that I have is, you know, after 9/11, I don't trust Saudi Arabia to begin with. But how do we make sure that those good weapons don't someday end up in bad hands and create the next ISIS?
Well, I think that's always a risk in almost any transaction in parts of the world other than the industrialized West. And it's something in this case in particular that we went through very close consultation with Israel on to make sure that these weapons as they're delivered did not affect Israel's qualitative edge. And I assume that Israel is comfortable with it. But we've got a lot of in the Arab monarchies, the oil-producing states, that are vulnerable to threats from Iran, from ISIS in particular. They want our help. I think it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah,
I acknowledge there's a risk.
But you bring up a really good point, because these are oil-rich nations. We still are very dependent on oil as a globe, not just the United States. So why don't they build their own damn weapons?
I'm a pro-carbon person, and they're going to pay for these weapons.
Yeah, I know that, and that's one
great.
of the things that...
You wouldn't want to give them away, would you?
No, but I feel like we've done that in so many other countries, and some of the forces, the security forces we've trained in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, that's throwing a lot of good money after bad, and I'm just hoping that we learn some of the lessons from the past and don't have history repeat itself. And the one good thing I will say about the arms deal is they are paying for it.
Yeah, I mean, what's the complaint?
Can I ask you a semi-personal question?
Sure.
Have you ever met Michael Bolton?
No, but I'd love to get to know him better and be in his will.
I will make that happen, Ambassador. I will make that happen. It's my personal mission now. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
Very good.